Hi there and welcome along to another episode of Form Check Fridays, where I take a look at various folks on rowing machines and give my opinion on what I think might work and what might need a little bit of work with their rowing technique. Now, as being in my rowing workouts that I have on this channel, I do talk about technique quite a lot while you guys are watching me row. I think it's only fair that I get a chance to talk about your technique. So if you want me to try and help you out with yours, then please do send a video or a link to info@RowAlong.com. And if you've got any comments about today's episode, if you think I've missed anything, or if you want to comment on anything that I do say, then please leave a comment on this video. Now, as for today, we're going to be taking a look at Olivier to see how his technique is. So let's get straight into that. Okay then, so here we go with Olivier. Now the first thing to notice is that he's got his own little man cave, a little corner of solace where he's able to put his rowing machine and just get in a good old row, so that's good. Next thing to notice is the fact that he's wearing one of these all-in-one outfits rather than it being just a pair of shorts and t-shirt, and what that tells me is this is someone that has some kind of a history with rowing, whether it's that he's just been doing indoor rowing for long enough and he's kind of realised that this is the most comfortable thing to wear, or he's got some kind of on-the-water background, who knows, but I'm expecting a good smooth stroke from Olivier. So anyway, let's quickly just look at a couple of things, or just one thing, and it's what I always start on, and it's feet. How is where he is on the foot stretcher. Now, if you look at the strap, you can see that it's kind of covering where the rise for the shoe begins to happen, rather than it being across the kind of the balls of the feet. So I'm tempted to suggest, this is even before seeing him rowing, that he may want to just drop down by one notch if there's any kind of binding up going on in terms of kind of coming into the front. Now, actually, when I look at the compression, this is him right before he starts, and he's got his shins in a vertical position already, even without rowing. So I think he's got good enough flexibility to be that bit high, but if there's any kind of, if he's feeling bound up, then maybe drop them down. But if he's hitting that vertical position and he's perfectly comfortable, then just continue with where you are, all right? So let's just hit play and see what happens. Right, instantly. Okay, let's see if, actually I won't jump on it yet. No, we're a good few strokes in. Okay, so, all right, so this is, I was stopped right at the catch and I was right with my initial thing. So you can see his shins as he comes forward, right in vertical. So I wouldn't say there was any particular issue when it comes to his foot strap height. There is, if you want to be completely pedantic about things, you can see his heels are up off the foot plate. So because he's that little bit high, he's maybe having to come forwards on his heels, and that gets the heels off the foot plate. But you have to see, is he getting them down quick enough? He gets his heels down and drives plants through. So again, unless there was a real worry about let's see if there's is there any kind of a butt scoot? There doesn't seem to be any kind of a butt scoot that he's losing his backside before connecting with his legs. So you know what? This is one of those times that I'd say, if you're comfortable with where your feet are, because you get into that vertical shin position and because you're getting the power in, then don't change it just because I say to. Now, there does seem to be, you see if I look at his foot here, now whether it's just how we're looking at it, but there does seem to be almost like an inward rotation of his ankles. Let's see what happens as we play. Yeah, you can see there's a slight twist to his feet as he comes through, so something strange is happening, and I do wonder whether it's because he comes to the back of the stroke, you can see his feet flicking up and yanking against the foot strap. This is going to be, I'd spotted something when we hit play before, but this is going to be revealed when we kind of look at the fuller stroke. But that's something to watch, that rotation. If you find that your feet are splaying outwards or inwards or whatever, chances are that it's because you're pulling on the straps at some point of the stroke, or you're going too far forwards at the front, and so your feet are kind of turning in or something. But there's two main things to notice about Olivier's stroke, and we'll take it in from the front and into the back. So in slow-mo, that's me I paused it right as he started, and look what he's doing with his arms. Rather than coming into the front at the catch and driving out with straight arms and then pulling at the finish, what Olivier's doing is he's coming in and then he's pulling early with his hands. He's taking the weight of the flywheel up with his arms first, and then going through the stroke. So it's all about his quite considerably large arms, just really picking up that power, rather than letting the power come through the straight arms, to have that hang off the handle, that the power coming up through his posterior chain, through his arms into the handle, and then adding in his arms. Okay, so let's just hit play again and we can watch what's happening. So you'll see, comes into the catch, there's that grab, and then he really pulls across the entire stroke rather than putting in at the end. So he comes forwards, you can see, I mean, listen, let's do this, and you can see his shoulders tensing right there, huge muscular shoulders as he pulls. And look, his arms are like, they're coming on for 90 degrees and he's only halfway through the stroke, and then gets into the finish. But like I say, we'll talk about the finish in a second, but this real grab there. So he's all about upper body. I mean, I'm sure he's getting power from his legs as well. But that push from the legs is not going to be as powerful because he's grabbing with his arms. He's going to be fighting against the power from his legs, and he's not going to really be able to get that proper snap and the hang off the handle at the same time of putting in the power. So he's not getting the power from his legs first, then his back, and then his arms. I'll show you what I mean in a second, because I want to go into the back of his stroke. So let's just continue. So he does his grab, he comes in, and then let's just take a look at how he finishes on this stroke. So comes in, and then how high up he's got the handle. So he's finishing really high up with the handle up in his up in his chest. So again, loads of people do this, but he's coming in, so he's grabbing and then finishing up at the top. So he's losing lots of arm power, and it's almost like, in order to compensate for the fact that he's lost half of his arm power, he finishes high to get that little bit more of a pull out of it, a little bit more length to kind of, like I say, compensate. And also, if you look what his hands are like, he's kind of doing a wrist flick in to even try and get an extra couple of inches off a wrist flick as well. Let's just put it into real speed and you'll see, let's not actually, let's keep it in slow-mo because he's going so fast. But he's got that flick up to the top to try and just squeeze out a little bit more power, because he's losing so much of a drive almost from that early arm pull. And then if you look at how far he comes back, let's just try and, there we go. So from a layback point of view, he's also starting, because he's come back that little bit too far and he's finishing high, he's almost kind of rounding down. There's a difference between coming back in an almost straight brace point, but then also kind of what he's kind of doing is bouncing. It's a very strange finish that he has, because he finishes so high. It's almost like it's that tug that I was talking about before that's kind of causing his heels to come in. It's kind of bouncing his body the wrong way as he comes into the finish. So he comes in, and then it's like a little rebound that he does to come out, because you can see it's not straight, come in, hands away, rock over. So let's hit play again, and you'll see that there's a strange kind of, it's like the knees are bouncing backwards as he does that little flick on with his feet against the foot straps. And then because he's got that strange layback, it's all throwing off the rhythm. And remember, what you really want to have is a really good fluid, especially at high rates, where because of that extra layback, he's kind of holding and pausing at the back instead of it being a smooth, fluid stroke. I mean, listen, we're talking like infinitesimal amounts here, but you can see this weirdness that's going on with his knees as he gets to the back. There's this strange wobble that happens with them. You can see it's like his left leg recovers first, which will be that twist that happens. Then his right leg comes up, all as he's trying to get himself out of that deep layback at the back. And because his hands are so high, they're not helping to bring him forwards. Because again, this is the thing that I've spoken about loads, is that if you can finish the handle at normal, listen, this is, I know lots of people argue about handle height, but if you can come in, finish at sternum height, you push. You can have a slight flare out of your elbows for sure, but take your elbows to the sides. If you just sat somewhere and just brought your elbows to your sides, they naturally want to go forwards again, okay? So you just put them back, they want to bounce forwards again. And this is one of the keys for keeping your arms down rather than high, because if you come in and finish high, you don't have that bounce. My hands are just kind of stuck up here. So when you're rowing normally, you come in, you bounce, and I don't know what just happened to my shoulders. You bounce, and that momentum then helps. It's only like a couple of inches that your arms move forward again, but that's enough to help send your arms forwards again, to then trigger your back lean, and then you can come to the front. If you're at the back and you finish top, you're beached back here essentially, because everything's now pointing backwards. Your hands are up, you don't have that forward momentum. You don't have anything to naturally take you back forwards again, which is why Olivier's flicking on the foot straps slightly, but then also why he's having how this thing's happening with his knees to try and kind of help him recover back to the front of the machine again. So he's the layback and the high finish are like a double whammy for what's kind of causing an issue here to try and get that smoothness to come to the front of the machine again. Now, if you look at his stroke, it's fine. There's no real problem with the fact that that's going on, apart from the fact that the muscles that you need to use in order to just get yourself back forwards again are going to tire you out. That you're using muscles you don't really need to be using, because if you come in with a kind of what way are we? 11 o'clock finish in terms of layback and arms at a sternum height, because it's then a very natural, in fact, rather than just doing it without the handle. So you just come in, it's just a natural move forwards. So finish, arms bounce straight back out again. Then you just tilt back over your hips and then bend your knees and your forwards. And it's very fluid. I'm hardly using any actual energy. I'm just using my body's momentum. So my arm's momentum triggers my back, and then the back forward lean. And then because my body weight is now on the front of the seat, and because the Concept 2 has that small rake, and because all my momentum is moving forwards, I just have to bend my knees and I roll to the front of the machine again. So I'm hardly using any actual extra muscles to recover. Whereas when I finish like this, I have nothing to naturally, apart from maybe the bungee cord on the Concept 2, there's nothing that's naturally taking me forwards again. So when I come to the back of the stroke, I have to use my abs, which again, he's got a good six-pack looking there under his top, but I have to use my abs to get me forwards, and then hands away, and then bend my knees. There's nothing particularly helpful, nothing's helping me here to get forwards again. So it's all about adding in extra, adding in extra energy usage in order to get me to the front of the machine, which will tire me quicker and possibly get me injured. I mean, even from demonstrating it there, I could feel my lumbar region kind of going, what are you doing? So there's various reasons to not finish that way. Plus, that high up and flick really gets, see that muscle there in the forearm. After a while, if you're coming in and pulling hard to a finish, then that really starts to cramp up, and that's when you get golfer's elbow, isn't it, the inside? That's where golfer's elbow comes in from, is that flick from the front. Again, he looks really strong and powerful and able to maintain these kind of forces, but if you're not, and you see someone rolling like that and you try and emulate them, it can be a little bit of a kind of a one-way ticket to golfer's elbow and intercostal issues with your stomach muscles and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of a really long way to kind of talk about two main things with Olivier's rowing, but that's what I'd say would the two things that would help is that the grabbing at the front of the machine, the picking up the handle with the arms first and not letting the power come from his legs, that's going to be costing him so much pace, as opposed to getting all the power in. In fact, I promised I'd show you. From a sequencing point of view, you want to come into the front and you want to push with the legs. Okay, so the first part is push with the legs. So all I'm using here is my legs at the first half of the stroke. Okay, so the power from my legs is just coming up through my body, through my arms, into the handle. I'm not moving my back. I'm not grabbing my arms. I'm nice and straight. And I'm doing 30 strokes a minute and 2 minutes 30 pace. Okay, but then you add in a backswing to this. So you push with the legs, then you swing over your back. Arms are still straight, and I'm down at 210 pace at 25 strokes a minute. So I've jumped up 20 seconds pace at 5 strokes less. Okay, follow me here. And then at the back of the stroke, you finally pull in your arms. And that's the 3 power generations, or the power sources for your stroke. And so now I'm doing 20 strokes a minute and 158 pace. There are a lot of rowers out there who finish high with the handle. The ones that that don't have that kind of sternum height handle, and you'll find that they do go very fast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and make a proper special video, like a form check Christmas special, whatever, looking at this in a bit more detail and trying to do a couple of experiments and looking at people. There was someone, I've forgotten his name already, but a lightweight from the 2020 World Indoor Rowing Championships that people have been in touch with about, just to see what I think about his technique. And also Sam Blythe has very kindly said that I can use him as an example as well, because he's one of these guys that finishes quite high with the handle. So I want to just make a little video that investigates that a little bit further to try and help people just think a bit more about whether you want to really change things up, whether you are an early grabber, whether you want to try and think about hanging off the handle instead. Because, like I say, if you're at home on your rowing machine, no one's going to force you to row in a different way. So it's just to kind of give you a couple of tidbits as to maybe why you might want to change, or just going to go, you know what, actually I'm so big, strong, powerful and bad enough, I'm going to keep on rowing the way I want to row. Anyway, right, so this was quite a long video about just one guy, but there's quite a lot to unpack in the 2 main things that I noticed. To be honest, I actually don't think that, I think this looks like a stroke that is very much for him, that because of the size of him, that early grab is what probably makes him as fast as he is, that because he's so powerful. You have to wonder, if he did row the way I was suggesting, would he be as fast? You never know. So it would be really interesting to hear back from him, to see what would happen if you tried to address the 2 things, which would basically try and hang off the handle from the front of the stroke and then pull at the finish, but also to have a lower finish of the handle. Instead of finishing up here, then try and finish sternum height, wrists flat through your slight flare out of your elbows. I'm not talking about this, I'm not chicken winging, but you come in, and in order to keep your wrists flat, a slight outward flare of your elbows, but your elbows come through the sides to help with that forward return. Be really interested if you've made it this far through the video. I'd be really interested to see what the result would be for you if you were to do 2 1 minute tests side by side, both of them at 24 strokes a minute, putting everything into it with like 5 minutes rest in between. What one you were able to go faster on, what one felt more comfortable. And if anyone else out there has this early grab, I'd say the same for you, is try it. Try and go for this hang off the handle. Try and concentrate on straight arms for the leg drive and then only pulling at the back. Do 1 minute at 24 strokes a minute as fast as you can, and then take a 5 minute rest, and then do 1 minute as fast as you can, doing like your technique and then what I'm suggesting, and then compare the 2 of them and see what you think, and make sure and leave me some kind of comment below on this video. All right, now I've been talking for almost 20 minutes about this, so I am going to say goodbye, and I will see you in a future video. Remember, if you want to send any video of you rowing for me to have a look at, I promise I'll be shorter, then please email it to info@rowalong.com. Either send me a link to a YouTube upload you've already got, or if you want to use a file transfer service, then the wetransfer.com service is a great one to use. It's perfectly free, and you just stick in my email address, and then ta-da, it will end up on this. So thank you so much for spending time with me. Please look after yourselves, stay safe, be well, bye-bye.